The night cracked open with a scream so raw, it shattered the silence of the alley. Amelia, a frail young woman of 20, clutched her chest as she stumbled over broken cobblestones, her bare feet bloodied from shards of glass. The storm overhead roared, rain slashing down in cold sheets, drowning her muffled sobs. She whispered, "Why must the world hate me so?" Her voice trembled, echoing against crumbling brick walls. Lightning illuminated the gaunt faces of passers-by, who turned away, indifferent to her agony. The air smelled of smoke and rot, mingling with the metallic taste of her own blood. Amelia's hands trembled as she reached for the wooden door of the shack she called home, only to find it bolted shut, her mother's shadow fading from the window. Betrayal had struck deeper than hunger, and she fell to her knees, clawing the mud with trembling fingers. "Please," she cried, "don't leave me like this." The world gave no answer, only thunder rolling like cruel laughter above. The storm became her judge, the streets her prison, and poverty her executioner. This was the night she would never forget. Morning broke with a deceptive calm, the storm's fury, leaving the slums drenched in mud and sorrow. Amelia rose from the alley floor, shivering as her dress clung heavy with dampness. The streets smelled of stagnant rain and smoke, every corner whispering of forgotten lives. She pressed her bruised hand against her chest, whispering to herself, "I will not break." The shack's door remained locked, its silence louder than screams, and she knew her mother had abandoned her. Her body ached with hunger, her soul cracked with betrayal, yet her eyes held a glint of defiance. Children scurried barefoot through puddles, their laughter cruel in its innocence. The city loomed beyond the crumbling walls, a world she had never touched, glittering in morning light like a dream meant for others. Amelia's reflection in a puddle looked older than her years, a face carved by suffering, yet unwilling to yield. She tightened her fists, mud dripping from her knuckles. Poverty had struck its cruelest blow, but her heart whispered of escape. This was the first morning she believed she could defy destiny. The hunger clawed deeper as the hours dragged on. Amelia stumbled into the marketplace, where stalls overflowed with bread, fruit, and roasted meat she could never touch. The aromas mocked her emptiness, twisting her stomach with cruel temptation. Her eyes darted between loaves of bread and the harsh gaze of vendors guarding their treasures. A boy her age laughed as he bit into an apple, juice dripping down his chin, and she looked away, ashamed of her longing. "Not today," she whispered, clutching her stomach. The crowd bustled around her, colorful garments brushing against her ragged dress, their owners blind to her existence. The market was life, yet it treated her like death, an unseen ghost drifting among the living. She paused before a fruit stall, her trembling hand reaching out instinctively before she pulled it back in fear. She knew the lashings, the humiliation, the price of being caught. Hunger fought with dignity, a war inside her frail frame. Poverty stripped her body, but her will still held its fragile shield. By evening, Amelia wandered to the riverside, her feet dragging through mud, exhaustion draped over her like a shroud. The water shimmered under the dying sun, yet its beauty felt cruel, as though mocking her despair. Families gathered nearby, laughing, sharing meals, their joy unreachable to her. She crouched by the river, splashing her face, watching ripples distort her reflection. Her hollow eyes stared back, haunted and weary. She whispered, "Do I even exist?" as though the river might answer. The cold seeped into her bones, numbing both body and hope. A fisherman's boat drifted lazily by, its lantern glowing faintly, a fragile symbol of life continuing without her. Amelia hugged her knees to her chest, rocking slowly, clutching herself against loneliness. Darkness gathered like an old enemy, and the chill of night threatened to bury her spirit once more. The river swallowed her tears, carrying them away to some distant place she would never see. Night returned, heavier than before, the slums sinking into a sea of shadows. Amelia wandered back to the alley where it all began, her body weak, her spirit cracked but unbroken. Thunder growled again in the distance, promising another storm. She pressed her forehead against the cold brick wall, closing her eyes as memories of her mother's face seared her thoughts. "I will rise," she whispered, though the words trembled like a fragile vow. Stray dogs barked in the distance, their fight over scraps echoing her own struggle. A lone candle flickered in a window high above, glowing like a star she could never reach. Amelia collapsed into the dirt, her heartbeat slowing with exhaustion, yet her lips curled into the faintest shadow of a smile. Somewhere deep inside her frailty lived a fire, refusing to die. The night might crush her body, but her dream stretched beyond these walls. Her escape had not begun, but it was already written in her eyes. The sun rose timidly, filtering through smoke that hung over the slums like a suffocating veil. Amelia awoke, curled against the brick wall, her skin clammy with dew. Her chest ached, but her spirit whispered against despair. She watched children play with sticks in the mud, their laughter cruel reminders of innocence she had long lost. Hunger gnawed at her, yet a flicker of resolve burned stronger. "I cannot die here," she murmured, her cracked lips barely forming words. The world had denied her kindness, yet she carried hope like a secret ember. A man walked past, cloaked in rags, his hollow eyes mirroring her own fate if she surrendered. She pressed her palm to her chest, vowing silently, "I will not end like him." The streets reeked of decay and sweat, yet the faint gleam of the city skyline beyond the walls shimmered like a cruel invitation. Her gaze hardened. Beyond these alleys was a future, though she did not yet know how to claim it. Amelia wandered toward the old church at the slum's edge, its bell long silenced, its doors warped and peeling. She pushed inside, the air heavy with dust and forgotten prayers. Candles flickered weakly, their wax melted into rivers along cracked stone. She dropped to her knees, trembling not from faith but desperation. "If anyone hears me," she whispered, "show me I matter." Her voice broke in the cavernous silence. For a moment, she imagined the saints in stained glass watching, their faces solemn, their silence cruel. Tears slipped down her cheeks, and she pressed her forehead to the floor. The creak of footsteps startled her. An old man in worn robes, eyes kind but heavy with grief, approached slowly. "Child," he said softly, "no one is unseen here." Amelia lifted her eyes, startled by compassion. Her chest tightened, as though those words lit a candle in her darkness. The priest's voice carried patience forged by years of sorrow. "Pain does not make you worthless. It makes you alive." Amelia trembled as his words struck deeper than hunger. She wanted to believe, but fear gnawed at her heart. "I have nothing," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the dirt between broken tiles. The priest knelt beside her, his hand gentle on her shoulder. "You have yourself, and that is enough to begin." She swallowed, her throat burning, the words foreign in her starving world. In that moment, she felt less invisible, as if her life might still hold meaning. Yet doubt loomed, her past whispers of abandonment clinging like chains. She lifted her head, gazing at fractured light through stained glass, its colors washing her gaunt face. Her voice wavered. "Then I will try." The priest smiled faintly, and for the first time in years she felt something close to hope. Leaving the church, Amelia carried the priest's words like fragile glass in her heart. The streets seemed less cruel beneath morning light, though her hunger still burned. She passed a group of women carrying baskets, their chatter sharp, their eyes dismissive as they saw her torn dress. Shame tightened around her like chains, but she clenched her fists. "I will not let them break me," she told herself, though her voice wavered. She paused at a puddle, staring at her reflection. Hollowed cheeks, weary eyes, but behind them, something fierce, something unyielding. A child offered her a crust of bread, giggling as he ran back to his mother. She stared at the gift, tears threatening again. With trembling hands, she ate slowly, savoring the taste of kindness she had not known in years. The bread was stale, yet to her, it tasted like a promise. She whispered, "I will fight for tomorrow." By noon, Amelia sat beneath a crumbling archway, chewing the last of the bread. Her body remained weak, yet her spirit stirred stronger. The priest's words echoed within her. "You have yourself, and that is enough." She repeated them, tasting their truth. Her gaze fixed on the distant skyline, where towers pierced the sky with cruel beauty. That world was not built for her, yet her heart beat louder with each thought of it. "I will not remain behind these walls," she whispered. Children's laughter drifted by. Women bartered loudly. Life pressed on as if her suffering did not exist. But inside her chest, defiance swelled like fire. She wrapped her arms around herself, shielding her fragile body, but her eyes gleamed with quiet determination. Beyond poverty, beyond betrayal, lay a chance to write her own story. The ember of hope had not only survived, it burned brighter than ever. The marketplace buzzed with cruel energy, vendors shouting prices Amelia could never pay, their voices sharp as blades. She pressed through the crowd, her stomach twisting with hunger, her ragged dress drawing sneers. "Move, beggar," a man spat, shoving her aside. She stumbled into a fruit stall, eyes catching the shimmer of ripe pears, their scent intoxicating. Her trembling hand reached out before she froze, fear paralyzing her. The merchant glared, suspicion burning in his eyes. Amelia turned away, shame heating her cheeks, but the growl of her stomach betrayed her. She whispered, "Not like this," forcing herself to walk past the abundance that mocked her existence. The sun blazed mercilessly, sweat dripping down her brow, her body crying for relief. In that sea of plenty, she was invisible, a shadow fading between bright colors and careless laughter. Each step away was a battle, each breath a reminder that the world thrived on her suffering. By dusk, Amelia found herself cornered in the alleys by a group of men, their laughter sharp and cruel. "What's a pretty rat like you doing here?" one taunted, his hand reaching for her arm. She pulled back, heart racing, fear pressing against her ribs. The alley smelled of liquor and sweat, shadows swallowing her escape. She whispered, "Please, let me go," her voice cracking. Their mocking grew louder, like vultures circling prey. Suddenly, a figure stepped from the darkness, a tall man with scarred hands and piercing eyes. His presence silenced the jeers. "Leave her," he growled, his tone heavy with quiet authority. The men hesitated, then scattered into the night, muttering curses. Amelia collapsed against the wall, her chest heaving. The man crouched beside her, offering no smile, only a steady hand. "You must learn to fight," he said, his voice like stone. In that moment, she met the Protector. The Protector led Amelia through winding alleys, his steps steady, hers stumbling. He said little, his silence a shield stronger than words. Finally, they stopped at a ruined workshop, its roof caved, but its fire pit glowing faintly. He handed her a crust of bread, rough but filling. She devoured it, tears running down her cheeks. "Why help me?" she asked, her voice hushed with suspicion. His gaze lingered on the fire, shadows dancing across his scarred face. "Because once, I was you." The weight of his confession silenced her hunger. She studied him, his rough clothes, his weary eyes, the quiet strength etched into his scars. He was broken, but not defeated. In his presence, Amelia felt a strange safety, fragile yet real. Her heart whispered, perhaps for the first time, that she was not alone. Yet fear still coiled inside her, warning that kindness often came with cost. Days passed with the Protector, teaching her to endure. He showed her where to find clean water, how to defend herself with a stick, how to stand tall even when fear choked her. "The world takes everything," he said, his tone like iron. "But you must refuse to give it your soul." Amelia listened, bruises on her body still fresh, but resolve growing. She swung the stick clumsily, stumbling, yet her eyes sharpened each day. Hunger still gnawed, betrayal still scarred, but she carried herself straighter, no longer a shadow. At night she lay awake on the workshop floor, the fire's glow tracing patterns on the ceiling. Her dreams whispered of escape, of walls falling, of skies opening wide. Yet deep inside, She feared it was only a dream. Her voice cracked one night as she whispered, "I will rise," and for once she almost believed it. The slums grew crueler as whispers spread of unrest. Food vanished from stalls, guards patrolled with whips, and those weakest disappeared into the night. Amelia felt the weight of fear heavier than hunger. The protector warned, "Stay low, trust no one." Yet one evening, as she returned from fetching water, she found her small bundle of rags scattered, her bread gone. Her chest tightened as a familiar figure emerged from the shadows. Lena, the girl she once called friend. "I needed it more," Lena said coldly, her eyes avoiding Amelia's. Betrayal stung sharper than hunger. "You were my sister," Amelia whispered, voice trembling with grief. Lena's smirk faded into silence before she disappeared into the darkness. Alone again, Amelia clutched her chest, her breath shuddering. Hope felt fragile, trust shattered, yet inside the wound, anger began to bloom. Poverty had stripped her, betrayal had scarred her, but fire was taking root. Night washed the slums in silver as Amelia followed the protector toward the factory ridge. He moved with purpose, his scarred hands hidden in his coat. She whispered, "Why here?" Her voice was thin, but steady. He said, "Answers live where power sleeps." The chimneys rose like dark fingers clawing the sky. Windows glowed with a cold light that made the streets look sterile. Amelia's heart pounded, as if it knew a secret she did not. The wind carried the smell of oil, iron, and something bitter. He stopped by a rusted gate and watched the guards pass. His jaw clenched as if holding back a storm. "You should know," he said. "Your mother once worked beyond these doors." Amelia felt the ground tilt. "She left me to save herself," she said. He looked away. "Or to save you." The words struck like thunder. Hope and dread braided tight inside her chest. They slipped into a storage yard where crates stacked like dead monuments. The protector pointed to an office with frosted glass. "He owns everything," he said, voice low. "Victor Hale." The name tasted like smoke. Amelia pressed her palm to her chest to steady the tremor. "Why does his name feel like a wound?" she asked. The protector did not answer. Footsteps scraped stone behind them. Lena emerged from shadow, chin lifted, guilt masked as bravado. "You wanted truth," Lena said. "I brought you to it." Amelia's breath caught as she understood the price. Guards fanned out like knives. Lena would not meet her eyes. "I needed coin," Lena muttered. "I had none." Amelia said, "You sold me." The words fell heavy and final. The protector stepped forward, teeth set, ready to break. They were marched into the office that glowed like a surgical theater. The man behind the desk did not rise. Victor Hale, tall and immaculate, set down a silver pen. His eyes were winter. "Amelia," he said, tasting the name. "You have your mother's stare." The room tilted again. She whispered, "You know me." He folded his hands as if in prayer. "I knew of you," he said. The protector's fists curled, knuckles pale. "Say it," he growled. Victor smiled without warmth. "She worked for me. She ran because of me." Amelia felt the words carve through bone. "Why?" she asked. Victor's voice was smooth as glass. "Because you were mine to claim if I chose." Silence roared. The protector stepped closer, rage shaking his frame. "You won't touch her," he said. Victor only watched, amused. The protector spoke first. "You will not claim her. You lost that right long ago." Victor's gaze flicked to the scars. "You again," he said. Memory flashed across Amelia's face. She saw the protector younger, bloodied, dragged from a strike. Victor leaned back, bored with old ghosts. "He broke my machines," Victor said. "I broke his body." Amelia felt anger rise like fire. "You broke our lives," she said, voice steady. Victor steepled his fingers. "Lives are cheap where hunger is loud." The truth stung like acid. The protector stepped in front of Amelia, an unyielding wall. "We are not cheap," he said. Victor's smile vanished. "Then pay the price," he murmured, pressing a button for the guards. Sirens wailed somewhere deep, and hope felt thin as paper. Before the guards arrived, the protector turned to Amelia, eyes burning. "Listen," he said, voice raw. "Your mother ran to keep you off his ledger." The words struck like lightning. "Ledger, dot." He pulled a folded paper from his coat, stained and creased. "Her last letter," he said. "She begged me to guard you." Amelia's throat closed as she took it. The ink was blurred, but the words cut clean. Her mother had chosen exile so Amelia could choose a future. "I thought she abandoned me," Amelia whispered, shaking. "She sacrificed everything," the protector said. Victor rose at last, annoyance sharpening to threat. "The past pays no rent," he said. "Leave her, or she stays." Guards slammed the door open. Amelia lifted her chin. Betrayal had revealed the truth. Fear gave way to a fierce, defiant heat. The office exploded with chaos as guards stormed in, boots thundering against polished floors. Amelia clutched the letter tight, her breath sharp and ragged. The protector stood tall, his body a shield of flesh and bone. "Stay behind me," he commanded, voice like iron. Victor Hale smirked, hands clasped behind his back as if watching a play unfold. Amelia's heart raced as the guards circled closer, their batons gleaming under cold light. "You cannot cage me," she whispered, though her voice trembled. Rage flickered in her eyes, stronger than fear. The protector swung first, fists colliding with steel, his scars splitting anew. He grunted, blood dripping onto white tile. Amelia's legs shook, but her resolve hardened. "I will not break," she said louder this time. The sound startled her as much as them. For the first time she felt fire in her lungs instead of emptiness. The fight raged, brutal and uneven. The protector slammed one guard into glass, shards raining down like frozen stars. Amelia ducked, clutching her chest, the letter pressed close to her heart. Victor's laughter cut through the chaos, sharp and cruel. "You think fists win against empire," he mocked. The protector gritted his teeth, blood streaking his jaw, but his eyes burned with fury. Amelia's gaze darted across the room, searching desperately. On the desk lay Victor's ledger, the book of names and debts. She gasped, realization striking hard. That book was proof, chains written in ink. "The ledger," she whispered, moving toward it despite fear. A guard lunged, grabbing her arm, but she twisted free, scraping skin against the desk. Pain surged, but she reached the ledger, her hands shaking. The protector roared, hurling another man aside, buying her seconds that felt like eternity. Amelia slammed the ledger open, pages yellowed and stained with secrets. Names scrawled in black ink stared back, thousands bound to Victor's cruelty. Her eyes widened as she found her mother's name, scratched and circled. Tears blurred the page. "She carried this weight," Amelia whispered. Victor's voice slithered closer. "A list of debts, not salvation." His hand reached for the book. Amelia pulled it close, her body trembling yet firm. "This is truth," she spat, surprising herself. The protector, staggering with wounds, shouted, "Run!" Guards pressed harder, batons raised. Amelia's chest burned with decision. She tore out the page bearing her mother's name, stuffing it into her dress. Rage sharpened her grief into resolve. "You own nothing," she said, voice steady as stone. The room seemed to shift. Her fear cracked, revealing fire. For the first time, Victor's eyes flickered with annoyance. Victor's voice hardened. "You think paper saves you? It burns." He lunged for the ledger, but the protector blocked him, their clash brutal and raw. Amelia backed toward the shattered window, clutching the torn page. Wind whipped in, carrying the scent of smoke from the factory yard. "Amelia," the protector shouted, straining under Victor's strength. "You must choose, run or fight beside me." Her mind raced, torn between survival and defiance. Guards surged again, but she swung a broken chair leg, striking one across the face. Her hands shook, yet her eyes blazed. "I will not hide any more," she cried, her voice filling the room. Victor staggered under the protector's blow, his mask of control cracking. For the first time, Amelia felt the shift. The oppressor's power was not invincible. Her pulse thundered with fire. The page crumpled in her fist like a weapon of truth. The room roared with violence, but Amelia's scream cut through louder than fists or glass. "You will not take me," she cried, lifting the page like a torch. Guards froze for a heartbeat, startled by her fire. The protector, bloodied and staggering, shoved Victor back into his desk, wood splintering under impact. Amelia's chest heaved, her body trembling, but her stance unbroken. Victor snarled, rage replacing calm. "You are nothing," he spat. Amelia's voice rose, steadier than her body. "I am everything you fear." The words silenced the room, sharp as thunder. The page in her hand felt heavier than steel, her mother's sacrifice pulsing through her veins. The protector locked eyes with her, pride glimmering in his pain. Amelia realized the truth. Her strength was no longer borrowed, it was born. The climax thundered within her. She was no longer a victim, but a storm. The sirens echoed in the distance as Amelia stumbled from the ruined office, clutching the torn page. Smoke rose from the factory yard, mixing with the copper tang of blood. The protector limped beside her, one arm pressed to his ribs, but his eyes gleamed with pride. "You stood," he said, his voice rough but steady. Amelia's body shook, yet her spirit burned steady as flame. "I'm not theirs anymore," she whispered, and the words felt like armor. The city skyline loomed ahead, golden lights shimmering beyond the walls. Behind them Victor's shouts echoed, promising vengeance. The sound no longer owned her. For the first time, Amelia walked forward not as prey but as survivor. Her bare feet stung against gravel, but every step carved a new path. Poverty had tried to chain her, betrayal had scarred her, yet hope now carried her weight. They collapsed beneath a crumbling bridge, breathless and bruised. The protector leaned back against stone, his face pale but his jaw firm. "You have your mother's fire," he murmured, closing his eyes. Amelia knelt beside him, trembling hands hovering over his wounds. "Don't leave me," she whispered, fear slicing through her strength. He exhaled slowly, pain etched in every line. "If I fall, it's so you rise." Her tears spilled, streaking through dirt on her cheeks. She pressed the page into his palm, desperate for him to hold something of her. His fingers closed weakly around it, a silent promise. Above them the moon broke through clouds, silver light bathing their broken forms. Amelia clenched her fists, resolve sharpening through grief. "Then I will rise," she said again, louder this time, her voice echoing in the night. Morning arrived cold and gray. Amelia stirred awake to silence, the protector's breath shallow but steady. She rose, her body stiff, and stepped into the street. The slums buzzed with rumors, whispers of guards hunting rebels, whispers of names stolen from the ledger. She pulled her torn dress tighter, chin lifted. "They will not own me," she whispered. Faces turned as she walked, some with pity, some with scorn, yet for the first time, she did not look away. A child tugged her sleeve, eyes wide. "Did you fight them?" Amelia paused, then nodded faintly. "Yes," she said. "And I'm still standing." The child's grin broke through the gloom, fleeting but bright. That spark told her the fight was larger than herself. Poverty had silenced many, but her voice could not be stolen. The ember in her chest had become flame. By midday, Amelia returned to the church, its crumbling spire reaching toward a clouded sky. Inside, the priest lit a candle, his eyes widening at her bruised face. "Child," he said, voice breaking, "what have you endured?" She set the torn page on the altar, the flame flickering over its creases. "I carry her sacrifice," she said softly, tears glistening but no longer weak. The priest bowed his head, murmuring prayers for strength. Amelia stood tall, her hands steady at her sides. "No prayer will build my freedom," she whispered. "But I will." Stained glass poured fractured light across her face, painting her in crimson and gold. She no longer begged for salvation, she had chosen to fight for it. As the candlelight trembled, she felt her mother's spirit not as absence, but as presence guiding her forward. Night fell again, stars piercing the haze above the city walls. Amelia stood on the ridge, her thin frame silhouetted against distant towers. The protector lay resting in shadows, too weak to rise, but his faint smile reached her. "The walls don't keep us in," he murmured. "They keep them afraid." Amelia closed her eyes, letting wind whip through her hair. She held the torn page in one hand, her other clenched into a fist. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with fire. She whispered, "Tomorrow, I begin." The words floated into the night, carried by wind, stitched into stars. Betrayal, hunger, cruelty, none could bind her now. She was scarred but unbroken, cracked but burning. As the towers gleamed like unreachable stars, she vowed not to bow, not to break. Tomorrow would not be survival, it would be resistance. Dawn bled through low clouds as Amelia stood atop a cracked loading dock, facing the weary workers. Her voice shook but carried. Amelia said, "He keeps you poor with ink, not iron." She raised the torn page, and silence rippled outward. The protector leaned on a post, breath shallow, eyes fierce with pride. He said, "Truth is a blade when held without fear." Murmurs surged like wind across dry grass. A woman lifted her child, jaw tight with hunger and hope. A man showed scars he hid for years. Amelia felt the slums inhale, then hold the breath. She said, "Walk with me, not for me, but for yourselves." The crowd shifted closer, shoulders brushing, spines straightening. Somewhere a bell clanged once, then again, as if the city could feel its own pulse returning. Amelia lowered the page, and saw in their faces the shape of tomorrow. They marched to the factory gates, boots slapping puddles, hearts in tempo with the bell. Guards formed a line, batons angled like fangs. Victor Hale stepped onto a metal balcony, immaculate and cold. Victor said, "Go home or starve louder." The words hung like smoke. Amelia stepped forward until the bars shadowed her face. Amelia said, "You wrote hunger into ledgers and called it order." She slid the torn page between iron bars. It fluttered like a small flag of truth. The protector stood at her shoulder, a broken wall that would not fall. He said, "If we bend, we break forever." A child began to clap, thin hands brave as drums, and others followed. The sound grew, not pleading, but claiming. Victor's smile cracked, edges sharp, patience thin as paper. The gate did not open, yet fear shifted to the other side. Rain began as a hush, then fell hard, drumming courage into backs and drums into hearts. Victor gestured, and a gate chain rattled like a threat. A guard advanced, jaw clenched, but the line of workers held. Amelia stepped sideways and pulled the alarm cord below the balcony. The siren wailed, tearing the sky, calling witnesses the gates could not dismiss. Victor shouted orders lost to the howl. The protector grabbed the chain and leaned with all he had left. He said together, and hands joined his, rough palms stacking like promises. The chain groaned, links screaming against old sins. With a final jerk, the lock snapped and clattered to the mud. The gate drifted inward, not grand, but enough to let breath pass. The siren fell to a moan, and in that space everyone heard their own names return. The yard flooded with footsteps as workers moved past fear and into space. Victor retreated, face hardening into a mask he could no longer wear. He said, "You will crawl back." No one answered. The protector swayed, color draining, yet his gaze stayed bright. Amelia caught him before he fell. The world narrowed to his breath and rain. The protector said, "I was meant to be a bridge, not a destination." He pressed a small rusted key into her palm, warm with blood and memory. He said to the office safe, "Names, wages, proof. Burn the debt, not the people." Amelia's tears mixed with rain, salting the earth with promise. She said, "I will carry you in what I build, not what I bury." He smiled like a door unlatched, and let the pain go quiet. The siren finally stopped. The silence was new. Night returned, but the darkness felt different, less like a wall, and more like a road. Amelia crossed the yard and entered the office where she once shook with fear. She opened the safe with the rusted key, hands steady. Inside sat ledgers bound like coffins. She carried them outside, stacked on a sheet of tin. Amelia said, "These fed his power. They will feed our dawn." She struck a match, its tiny sun trembling, then touched flame to paper. Fire unstitched the past line by line. The workers stood close, faces lit not by orders but by choice. Amelia said, "We remember names to free them, not to bind them." Pages curled, ashes lifting like black snow. She looked toward the city and beyond the walls. Amelia said, "I choose the open sky." The wind rose, and the last ember floated up like a promise.